Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode. My microphone setup is different, so hopefully the sound is coming in clear. Life, the grand happening. As soon as I change the song, okay. So to dive into it, in this episode, I wanted to zoom in on the relationship of movement and meaning. And what does it mean for there to be movement before meaning and meaning before movement? Right now, the human being has a relationship to both sides of the coin, and I guess something I should say about the title very early on is someone once asked me, what is life? To be honest, a close family member. And I remember I told them that in the simplest way I have honestly observed is that it is a massive movement. It's I've never been horse riding in my life, but little did I know I've been riding the waves of this conscious world from the beginning. It is an event that certain percentage of it is known. That's what I consider life. I consider the civilization being built on a turtle's back, and this turtle is alive more than anything. It has a mind of its own. Right now, human beings, our level of, let us say, communication is to objects and subjects. It is going to move on towards events and rhythms. What does that mean? That means if somebody tells you, remember who you were yesterday, you might get a sensation or a feeling, but it was the whole day, every moment of the whole day that constitutes who you were yesterday. Some people view it that we are moving in time, and there's another view where because we move and things change, there is time. Now, if we see the movement before the meaning, the movement, I want you to consider it objective. We're seeing atoms move in empty space. You know, me moving right now, my hand moving as I speak, or my mouth moving, and these words being shared. These are all like atoms moving in space, pretty much. What is separating, what is allowing these complex particles that is being this physical existence of mine, it's like the meaning is the soul of the movement. It is why the object changed. Because if we don't see a meaning to life, then how would I say it? There's no intelligence. The intelligence of the human being is its ability to see a vision in this world. For me, Michelangelo has a quote. He says, I saw the angel in the stone and I set it free. That is intelligence. He saw something that wasn't here and he brought it here. And it's an interesting idea to divide the human being into, let's say, the traditional Metaphysical division of body, a mind, and a soul, and let's see those as three concentric circles, whichever way you want to see, whether soul is in the center or soul is in the outer circle, whichever way you want to see. I'm just saying that it's as if we look at the body, the mind, and the soul, and the body is, we can say, known. It is where we get to work with known phenomena. The mind, who knows what the mind is doing? The mind is known, half unknown. That means you need that balance in order to exist as a mind. If you were 100% unknown, you don't exist as an individual. That means the unknown is not for individual life. The known is for individual life. That means if you want to, if you're an individual, here's the thing. It's a balance between the known and the unknown. Those yogis that would, I find at least, that would go into the Himalayas, like certain Tibetan Buddhists, they would go and meditate for 3 years, 3 months, and 3 days. Exactly that number. It's like they were really going for 3 times the charm, or third times the charm, or what is it? So if we were to look at a meaning for the body, there is no meaning. It reduces to known movement. When we look at mind, it is where the meaning seems to be received, as if if the brain was an antenna, the signal it's receiving is mind. That means semi-known, semi-unknown reality in this state, for the mental creature. If you're a person who is, because the idea of the body, mind, and soul, there are variations. They're like different chords, on an instrument. There are pretty much, okay, let's continue with this division of known. The body is known, a known object. The mind appears to be simultaneously a known object and an unknown subject. And the soul, which is the mystery, is, we can say, 100% unknown. That means that's one thing I'm 100% sure, that the soul is 100% on. It's like there's so much unknown in this world. What do we do with it, And guess why we created knowledge, It's like a reason why man made knowledge, because he didn't know what to do with all this unknown. Where do you put it? You got to put it in language. You got to put it somewhere, You got to put experience somewhere. Let us say that what we consider to be meaning, human meaning, or human existence, human conscious existence, is an oscillation, is a vibration between known objects and unknown subjects. This is the whole educational system's purpose on this planet, to make the human being acquainted with knowledge to prepare them for the unknown. That's a true educational system. The educational system we see now, it's like a minion of the economical sector. This educational system doesn't really care about for education. To care about knowledge, the human being has to move to a selfless dimension. because the issue of having a relationship with the human mind is that it is starting off with an image, only being able to be aware of itself as an image. That means to surpass imagehood, to surpass a conceptualization of a manifestation will only happen if the person is content with the unknown. If the person fears the unknown, is uncomfortable with the unknown, dares not look at the unknown, the person has been shackled to a program. That means that's the easiest way to know that you are possessed by an ideology, when the unknown can't be just the unknown. The unknown is one of the most powerful words in language. It is the finger pointing to the glitch in the system of linear meaning. So I'm saying that human meaning, human life, is sandwiched between a known movement and an unknown movement. And the unknown movement, we have no choice. Our greatest attempt at studying it is studying fields. You see, you can divide all scholars in history, as if what was their attention to. For me, even though we have the term, for example, scientist, we have the term of a religious person, we have the term of the philosopher, these ways of acknowledging, these are just words. What is actually going on is a journeyer, is a living being. Who knew life wasn't a concept, and if it wasn't a concept, concepts point to objects, so it is not an object. There is a nostalgia, not nostalgia, there is a hidden wonder. That is the best way to say. There is a hidden wonder to life when you feel you have found your own sight. That means the thing that the human being has generated, they become passionate about. You see, it's as if where there is passion, there is the authentic. Why? Because the new is being introduced. That means if you are truly an advanced human being, you must care for the advancement of your civilization, therefore caring for the advancement of yourself, therefore caring for all the moments that your attention can respond to the living world. Because on some very profound level, we are all trying to climb out of the language that we thought we became, we were conditioned into. You know, just like again, the quote from Michelangelo, this Italian sculptor, where he says, "I saw the angel in the stone and I set it free." So it's kind of like, imagine now you are the stone, the child that is born into a new world, and the world and the events and every experience so far has sculpted you. And it's strange because I feel nature is sculpting similar. It's like nature provides the signal but also creates the ears to hear it. You know, I can't ignore how life moved, you know? It's like playing chess, you know, for the first time, or winning in chess for the first time, or being defeated in chess for the first time. a strange feeling that now you have stepped into a new experience. And believe it or not, this is where detachment is very crucial. Detachment is a very smooth way of creating space for how your eyes will change in the future. That means I have this very serious intention to just wonder, what are these 8 billion creatures on this rock going to do? At the same time, I see a hollowness to language. Believe it or not, if I feel language is the first simulation we need to get out of. Then once we are direct experiencers, field-like experiencers, what does that mean? That means, think of it as if from the beginning of life you were simultaneously a formed being and a formless field of being. Imagine you were both of these, but imagine you have only been, based on society's conditioning and whatnot, just introduced to the known component of yourself. That means something that really saved my life, I would say, from my own ignorance, from my own carelessness, was that I noticed I don't know. I notice I don't know. And I notice many don't know. And I notice that for eons we can attempt many. We can endlessly extract geometrical, linearized, beautiful meaning from our environment, only to see that we are the movement before that meaning. So I don't know what to really say at some point. The more these talks get closer to the language threshold, I gotta pile it down. Because then there's nothing to say. Silence is the tour guide to the beyond. And I feel if a human being realizes that just like they have two eyes that see the same, their body is like a particle moving in the field of their awareness. Right now, as I speak, you are the knower in the room of your moment. I mean, my voice is here, but it's probably coincidence. It's like this unique coincidence, I would say. Because nature chooses which voices. That means for me, it's like the greatest critic. I mean, I've said this, that the greatest critic of my own talks is me. I feel there's no one who can criticize my own talks better than me. But I feel time and nature is the ultimate judge. There was this story I remember hearing. There were these two brothers. It was in ancient Greece or somewhere. That kind of context I remember. And there were these two brothers, and one of the brothers went and was a very influential public figure at the time, and everybody knew him and everybody celebrated him. You know, and he wrote a lot and did a lot and all this. And there was another brother who, that brother just wrote one thing. And the story was being told in the sense that after 1,000 years, people forgot the one speaking a lot. They saw they saw the brother, the words of the brother who spoke less. And what do I mean by that? That means the story was saying it on some level, even though you can work at hard as much as you want, but nature has its own mind. And if you have not acknowledged nature's mind and you're trying to move in it, then it's as if you have not seen the horse you're riding, you know? Because when a human being rides the horse and the human being the horse has to feel a comfort and trust of where it's running to, you know? That means it's intense. I mean, that person behind the chariot whipping a horse, I think the moment we made cars, all horses in the world were like, our prayers have been answered. But at the same time, the need for horses also went away. That means I think it would have been such a cooler time if you were horse riding back home, you know? You were horse riding, let's say even to work. You're late to work and, it's like, it's like your boss is like, why were you late to work? And you're like, my vehicle had 1 horsepower. Sorry, man, I can't do much. But anyways, this notion that in any moment of life, it doesn't matter. I could see myself being born on any planet. There would be a known factor. There would be an unknown factor. The known factor obviously begins to attempt to own the moment. That means most people, their inner realm tries to own the moment. It's subconscious. It's so subtle, you know. It's that people don't realize behind their eyes they're living for a certain expression threshold. You know, I heard this statistic right now. I'm giving this talk in Toronto, Canada. But I remember I heard this statistic that was it was this documentary, to be honest. 1 in 3 people, men in Japan, is dying alone in their homes, and people don't notice. They're living such solo lives that nobody knows. And it's tragic, the person just dies in this kind of habitual programmed good life, which is not actually good at all, you know. And I was thinking why, and I realized it makes sense. Resources are limited, population is increasing. The moment the environment becomes rough, then the psychologies become rough, then civilization is pretty much doomed. Right now, my attempt was like, okay, you can't stop physical war. You can't. It's like there's, um, but you can stop the idea from existing. That means imagine we stop seeing the concept of war. We stop seeing the concept of this may be too futuristic, but of national pride. And we started to see that we are our choices, and the decisions you make are how your attention is moving throughout the day. Let me tell you that there's this saying. You hear it you see it in films, you see it everywhere pretty much. I don't know why. It was a media thing. I associated it with a media thing in my mind, where the kid would go, and the kid couldn't do something in the film or whatever, and would go to like his uncle or someone, and the person, some father figure, role father figure, you know and the person would say, just be yourself, kid, just have confidence, you know and the person's like, what do you mean have confidence? Let me tell you, you don't need confidence. Confidence is just the aftermath of victory. You need attention to the design of what is moving in the moment. If you can see how something works, you don't fear it usually. Do you know? That means if you know the dark room, there's a switch in it, and you're afraid of the darkness, you go in, click the switch. Oh my God, what I thought was darkness was a room, was a reality. And I'm honestly thinking how much of the cosmos is actually filled with sophisticated design, but it's too dark for us to see, as if man has not found a way to um, step beyond his own shadow. And I'm not suggesting that nationalism should be forgotten, guys. This is very crucial. It's a very complex problem because nationalism, it's like any system, it has good side and a bad side. You know what I mean? That means maybe Diogenes can say it better than me. Diogenes was asked once, where are you from? This Greek philosopher. He's also known as the father of cynicism in philosophy. He's like the first legit cynic, earliest recorded cynic in history. Diogenes once asked, where are you from? He says, me? I am a citizen of the cosmopolites. And it blows the mind of that guy who was like proud of the village he had come from. He's like, man, I'm standing here thinking, yay, I'm part of this chunk of land. And then Diogenes is standing there, I'm a citizen of the cosmopolites. That means, buddy, you're looking at the dirt, I'm looking at the stars, you know? Terence McKenna, this scholar and this incredible speaker, uh, he spoke about this concept of an archaic revival. The term archaic means that which was in the past. Revival, everybody knows. So the archaic revival is patterns from the past being projected, being found for now. That means history is repeating itself. Another way of saying that, Terence McKenna approached it with the context of the archaic revival as if it's the past is living through the future. That means we think the past is gone. No, the past has just become the future. That means there is elements of the past in whatever future thing you do. So Mr. Within would say, if Terence McKenna said archaic revival, I was thinking, what is reviving? What is reviving next? And I realized it's not just the archaic revival. That means if Terence McKenna was in the room, I would probably say it's the archaic revival of the unknown. But in my view, it's the revival of the unknown mystery in the human mind. That we have lived too much in solid stories. It's like for how long can you hear stories? After some point, there's a yarning. And that yarning means you're more of a multidimensional creature than your opinions can so far fathom. That means it's a cool feeling to realize you can't even have too much of an opinion on yourself because there's so many angles of your own being that the person doesn't see. Like you could totally see the first human being looking in the mirror and be like, is that me? you know? So, in the chat section, someone says, how real do you think life is? I feel life is more real than a thought. So Cohen, as a response to your question in the chat section, I think life is way more real than a thought. We thoughts are just they're the ink. It's not the hand that's moving them. That means the senses are not you. You are the processed result of them. So you are semi-world, call it unknown, call it what you will. Call it the free will, There's many things. pretty much the inner realms, you can translate them in infinite ways, and especially when you notice geometry, it becomes very easy to navigate in the inner realms, and after some point, the inner realm moves and you watch. So you know what's interesting? It's kind of like I'm watching a film before I speak, and once I've seen the film, then it's just like I know what to say. It's as if my inner realms is a river of attention, unconditionally having an ability to be in any memory. So the way I see it is not that we have memories. The memory is the event past in that moment. The attention, think of it this way, think of everything that you see translates into two formats. Or let me say it this way. um, I'm kind of perceiving the idea of receiving phenomena as a result of reception and phenomena as an expression being simultaneous. So, guys, Cohen says, I have been debating consciousness a lot lately and getting a bit confused around the matter. To be honest, what are your thoughts on this? It is the biggest mystery of our species, and you're not the only one who's confused by it. It is the most mysterious thing how matter became a thought to itself, and especially a thought that could direct itself and navigate itself. Cohen, I would advise you this. It all has to do with your decision and your principal universal philosophy of whether you're choosing, uh, um, uh, how would I say it, consciousness being a natural phenomena or unnatural. If you consider consciousness as a natural phenomena, it has a natural solution. That means its solution is before language was sparked. You know, before language, there was still consciousness, but it was not um, bouncing back as a subject to itself, you know? I mean, isn't it strange that the world, it's like light is the common denominator of all existential possibilities. And light, more personalized to the human biology, I would say, is sight. So, really, it's the relationship of what is being seen and the seer. And that is the clue, Cohen. You got to study your attention in two ways. One, in a civilization that has evolved so far, and you go see what the world has said so far about it. The other, you go and see, if you were on an island alone, what would your experience of this mystery be? How would you approach this mystery? The issue is people fear their own greatness, so they don't attempt the new, and therefore it's like Wayne Gretzky says, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Okay, interesting. So Cohen says, uh, what makes it possible for that to happen? How is that possible if you try to link it with the theory of evolution? First of all, if we are to link it with the theory of evolution, either it moves beyond the scope of the idea of evolution, and evolution is a stepping stone towards the reality, towards this truth that we're wondering about, or it's limited by evolution, by the idea of evolution. If we think it's limited by the idea of evolution, then it's a hallucination. Evolutionary speaking, me talking to you right now and you listening, the ideas, the subjective existence of both me and you, it's a hallucination of electrons, electromagnetic field or something. That's the materialistic approach if we wanted to just see matter. But I feel matter, I feel just like how Darwin spoke about an evolution of the creaturehood and the form, I would say there's something I've spoken about. My view on evolution is a bit different on general evolution. I, for me, for example, the objective evolution, its significance is not this gradual adaptation over billions of years. For me, the significance of the objective evolution is why creaturehood. Why creaturehood? Because the spontaneity, the uniqueness of the relationship of the various designs on this planet, it's as if the painter improvised. That means it's as if imagine you're someone, imagine a person who perceives that reality is under the will of some uh, personification of the universe. It's as if, what if that personification of the universe had no comprehensible reason? Like, what reason is there for splashing paint on a canvas? Do you know? That means it's very complex. At least the best approach is we have been conditioned in a singular view of reality. Everybody thinks they're just one kind of person. Everybody thinks they're just in one kind of world. Now science is starting to slowly hear what mysticism said 10,000 years ago. You know, so that there's parallel dimensions, and that this tree line of gods, because many people, like, you might, if somebody asks you, what is Indian metaphysics like, most likely you're going to say they believe in a bunch of gods, right? Most people may think that, but many people don't realize, where did all the gods come from? Do you see what I mean? So it's like a tree. The source is singular, and then it all branches out. All ideological systems have a very firm source. So Cohen, thanks for the question. Great question. I mean, this question is really what everybody is asking. We've opened our eyes in a system that is, again, oscillating between known variables and unknown variables, and we study it and we project. The cool thing is that imagination. That means if there were two people sitting beside each other, and those people were not speaking but were about to, but the inner realms of both is different. That means there is a strange natural privacy policy to how you can experience a world before expressing it. There is an inner life that is highly multidimensional, and the reason it's multidimensional because it's like the soul is not in the body. The soul is also in the space. If let's say soul is the mysterious unknown animate variable, that means in a mathematical equation, we have let's say x is an unknown factor. So now Mr. Within is saying, if we were to look at all of life as an equation, this mystery of consciousness and the soul is that unknown variable. That means it's really that which has no definition, because its definition is that it's beyond definitions. I feel this view may bring contentment to a lot of people who their inner realms are turbulent. You gotta understand, like, we're pilots. Like, some days the weather's nice, some days it's not. There's storms, you gotta elevate, like, change your elevations and perceptions. That means in life, let's say there is suffering, and let's say this suffering there's a reality to it, there's pain. Now, what can be done? Objectively, you got to go with the pace of the biology. That means, imagine you're a soccer player, you're wounded, you're a professional soccer player, you're wounded. So what do you got to do? You got to just hold back on that love for football. You got to put your passion on hold until the biological program is up to par with the activity. You don't need just an atom smasher. Your mind is an atom smasher. Where do you think the atom smasher comes from? We smashed the atoms into subjects and named it. Like, can you imagine? Like, human beings have conquered everything. Back in the day, we conquered villages, we've conquered animals, people, wildlife, nature, and we've even conquered the atom. Like, if the planet was alive, it'd be offended probably. It'd be like, what the fuck? By the way, guys, feel free to support me on Patreon. John says, I've been thinking about creation also. I think it had to start with a single thought from a single unknown source. But if there's nothing, what's there to think about? Very mysterious. Okay, this is an interesting question because either we have a chicken came first, chicken or egg explanation approach, or we have a multidimensional simultaneity approach. That means which came first, the chicken or egg? Guess what? Both. Both at the same time. Many dualities are set loose. There's many dualistic patterns, and some of them are ancient. That means people should treat civilization and society as if it's not just there's giants walking here. And you know what the giant is? The giant is the law of the land. Do you know people now, they want to break rules, they want to break laws, they want to retaliate. But do you know there was a time where it was all just savage protest in the jungles of against trying to just live like Hunger Game level? And then we got civilized, and only in our ability to acknowledge the same values we managed to continue. That means you as a human being have two responsibilities in this world. One is to self, one is to world. Now, the greatest responsibility of the self, it's eventually just, I guess, a sort of street smart common sense where you're like, win, lose, or win, win. Which one, I wonder, So it's obviously a win-win. So the thing is, if we can make our disadvantages advantages, that's acceleration towards an advanced civilization. Because we fear the unknown. I don't know how many people are comfortable with nothing being nothing. I think few people, especially those who have many victories in this life, that means imagine you are a person in this world who everything you've ever done, you've been successful at. Let's imagine that, okay? Which is highly unlikely, because we all learn from our mistakes. Our success comes from first noticing what the mistake was, being able to discriminate with what the mistake was. But let's say you're a person who you've gotten your way in anything you've wanted. You know what your mind is doing in the behind the scenes? of your psychology, potentially. Your mind is waiting for the world to move it. And there has to be a balance. This is why human beings need to find a dimension of love in their life. That it's not just about the intellect and resource allocation. That you are a human being. That you need to be moved by the world as much as the world moves you, or you won't feel human. If you just move the world, you'll feel probably superhuman. If the world moves you, you don't even feel you're there. Sometimes when I fail, it's as if it's as if I have died to myself. A certain effort, an archetypal effort of the moment, died to itself. And I don't know. I mean, I've had different moments in my life. A lot of moments where I felt shunned. I felt shunned by nature, not even people, by my intuition. People think intuition is just happiness, smiling at happiness. It's like the intuition is literally you realize you are a multidimensional worker. And when you look at your life, that's how the psychology is working. This is why Carl Jung brought this important idea of the archetypes. And the archetypes could be said to be a cinematic language that is in the design of the context of before any movement happens. In a certain science fiction work of mine, I wrote this hilarious thing that in this parallel version of the Earth, human beings reach the edge of their solar system, edge of their universe somehow. It was possible for them in that parallel dimension, and they reach the edge of the universe and they suddenly realize it's a mirror. Can you imagine? Can you imagine us being like, the universe is huge, the universe is endless, there's so many galaxies, so many stars, but can you imagine us after a certain point going and noticing it's like an invisible mirror? I feel pretty much you take these two axes and these are all the ways, all the types of dimensional beings that there could exist. I'll read the list for you right now. Let me just write it here. There we go. So these are the options, guys. Just a second. Let me see. How should I? Think of life from one axis being having two sides, two poles, known and the unknown, and then try to visualize simultaneously that there's another dimensional interpretation, another axis, which is the singular and the multidimensional. What does that mean? That means there is, let me even bring a third axis, the self and the world. There could be known singular selves. There could be unknown singular selves. This is just endless. I wish I could show this to you somehow. I can't show you the picture. These three axes, for anybody who's a scholar and has a certain wonder for the inner realms, these 6 words, I feel, are the most important words ever in the English language, in existence. Again, the axis of the known and the unknown, the axis of the singular and the multidimensional, the axis of the self and the world. You study these 3 dimensions and your eyes will be your greatest teacher. We think the sight is light. The performance of a lifetime is simultaneously being the performance of the universe. We give a name to the performer of the lifetime. But can we give a name to this universal performance? Silence will be the greater humility. I have predicted, or very poetically neo-prophesized, and people are going to be like, Mr.Within, do you mean like a new prophecy? And I'll be like, no, I mean like I've prophesized like Neo from the Matrix. The educational system will realize the hollowness of language, and for the first time, human beings will feel again as if they have a new responsibility to see what the meaning of the world is, to give the movement of the world breathing room from how the past is shackling it to a certain meaning. When I think about the concept of mastery, it's these 2 things. Anything you do, it's known and unknown. The master knows what to do in the unknown situation and in the known situation and the unknown situation. And the reason is because they've realized their energy is dependent on how much effort the attention extends forth. That means you're not just your thoughts. You're as far as you go. And it's the coolest time to be alive. The most remarkable time where the world more than ever requires to advance communication before the year 2050. Because in 2050 it's going to be a different game. You know, cyberspace is going to be a poetic afterlife. So guys, I need a quick break. I'll be back in a couple minutes. Yeah, I'll be Okay. All right, guys, I'm back. The reason I needed the intermission was I didn't want my stomach to interrupt the talk. I was thinking that human beings, they are all creatures. The process of creaturehood, it is a character in a game. And the question, the true, the true question of the unknown is that before that concept existed, what was there? You know, before shape, the question is taking us to contemplating about intelligence before form. You know, it's like thinking about nothing and emptiness. You know, Zen and Buddhism. It's as if very. I mean, I'm saying this playfully, but it's like many people around the world, they wonder about the polytheistic and monotheistic religions, but when it comes to Buddhism and Zen, they notice the emptiness before. They notice the emptiness of the canvas. And so what if emptiness again is a coin? We don't see the other side of emptiness. All this empty space, we think it's not empty, imagine. And it's this hyper metaphysical concept. Could time be sandwiched between two different spaces? That means, could there be awareness to two senses of subjective self in the moment? That means when you remember your past, who are you? Are you the self in the past memory, or are you who's remembering it now? When people remember things, it's like it brings back the emotion. That means if I tell you, like, let's say I don't know, like, somebody tells you, how was the weather yesterday? And let's say it was super cold yesterday, so you suddenly feel the room just got a bit colder as you remember yesterday. And it's the same with people who go through intense experiences where when they remember that intense experience, they fall back into the previous archetype. That's how you know someone hasn't let go of the past, because the past still bothers them. It was an exceptionally efficient moment of my life when I noticed my past has passed. You know how many subjective senses of self, like the general in the battlefield back in the day, I have, how many archetypes I have closed their eyes after the archetype has completed its purpose in the inner realm. What does that mean? That means this is something very recently, I've noticed and found a way to speak about it. Just a second, guys. Okay, this is the idea, guys. Idea recently, I found a way of saying it. Everything in your life, if you look at it, whoever you are and whatever you do in life, you're going to notice, just like how in the Vedic tradition there was the archetype of Brahman, Vishnu, and Shiva. Brahman was the dimension of the creator. Vishnu was the dimension of the maintainer. Vishnu is the maintainer of the universe. And Shiva is the destroyer. And if you notice in your life anything that you can completely be able to, what's the word I'm looking for? Be able to experience these three phases or three dimensions to anything, I feel a person's success in life is having the ability to notice these three dimensions of the event. And if the person notices it, and I think if you look at your life, what you were successful in, you were aware of these three modes of perception. Pretty much I'm saying anything you can see its beginning, its middle, and its end, you understand. And that's a very interesting idea, that we may not understand what is going on until the very end. It's as if life is like a good song. It has this build-up. You know, of course, I could give the past so much power. I could think who I am is just because of the past. Or I could feel who I am is based on how much I've studied the future. Because for how long can you care about your past? You know? Like so many people, their problems exist in their inner realms. Their problems have to do with them not adjusting to the world, not the world not adjusting to them. The person's like, why am I always unlucky? You know, it's like maybe it's like the problem is right there in front of the mirror. The attitude. It's a stoic issue. You are in the value you see to life behind your eyes. If here's the thing, usually when the person, the child, and when the person's younger psychology, their psychology when they're young, you want the outer realms to listen to your inner realms. The child cries, instantly the parents assist to it. The child is raised in a psychology where expressing gives, expressing receives. You know, there's this saying, they say the screeching wheel gets the oil. Many moments in life, if you don't communicate, the value of the moment only exists to you and only in the way you see it. That means imagine Isaac Newton never wrote the Principia Mathematica. It's as if imagine how many inventions could have never been invented. Imagine Steve Jobs, instead of building the iPhone, which revolutionized many of our lives and lifestyles. Imagine he wanted to go and become a violinist. He's like, yeah, forget computers, forget apples, I'm tired. I just want to play the violin. You know, we'd be like, no. You know, like right now, we know the value of the future self of that person. We know the value of that person. Like, you might not know your value. Like Nikola Tesla, this man he's not honored as much in the educational system. He's not taught that much, but he is one of the most important people on this planet. And he was alive at the same time Edison was. and they were in competition. And Edison had the DC motor and Tesla had the AC motor. And Tesla was so advanced. And when you look at Tesla's life, in his childhood, he had a super strict Christian religious upbringing, and his father made Tesla memorize the whole Gospels and the Bible and everything. So you can see the way this Nikola Tesla as a human being was positioned in life, the early experiences of the child's life is preparing it. That means if you're smart, the past is a toolbox, not your dictator, you know? I feel the reason so many people are fascinated even with the idea of the future is because the past is past, and now the present, you're seeing what's in the present. Only the future is unknown. The idea of a simulation is not, the world is a simulation, is not that common now. Can you imagine a parent looking at their young kid, you know, and saying, "Kids, I love you, but the world doesn't exist. It's all a simulation." The kids are going to be like, "What do you mean, Dad?" And the father's just crying. "You'll understand one day, son." You know, imagine your mind is a Ferrari, but, or let's say your mind is an airplane, but you're only piloting the airplane on the ground. That means it's just moving with wheels on the flight platform. The airplane hasn't lifted up. Those people who are attached to an incredible amount of matter dictating them, if matter is your leader, matter's direction is breaking. That means the whole point of the unknown is wondering if there's a way out of not the self, but the conceptual condition of existence. It's strange. It's like existence danced until experience started dancing. And now existence and experience have danced so long that it's only left for the unknown, for the new experiencer. You know, human beings have been trying to build the future, but what if we have to also wait for something to happen in the future? Maybe it's a symbiosis, maybe it's a co-creation. Maybe the meaning of life can't be understood if the person's, from the beginning of their life till the end of their life, their attention is only on their self. We are a self-obsessed, language-worshipping kind of species for now. I've declared after 2020, like after the new year, that it's like, okay, it's the era of the advanced communicators. What does that mean? That means we are not defined by how physically, our physicality is not like when you see a person, they're not just there what you see. You know? They're not just what you're looking at. You see that the human being has unknown dimensions. Every human being I see, of course, like the immediate physical person, and based on every person's conditioning, I mean, you got to think about it as if your mind has its own alphabet, and when sensory perception information arises, is received, this alphabet is used to process it. You know that before nationalism, before nations, it was like there were people were just speaking random dialects that were similar to each other. You know, but it was only when nationalism really established that languages, every nation got its language, and all the dialects that were just roaming around, they either had to join, integrate, or they had to die off. There is this huge chance that pride can also be an early extinction. It's like us being so proud that we're a technological civilization, then the technology gets out of control and we're like, oh snap. We just denied our own freedom. We created something that defines our freedom. You know, back in the day, it was language was as phenomenal as AI. Right now, how I feel people are looking at AI being in the year 2050, the technological singularity again. Like, I think it's as fascinating as when language, the subjective evolution occurred to a point where language could be used. Because if you really look at it, what thinking is, this word thinking, which is this mysterious at the same time, we're like, okay, thoughts are moving. What is actually going on is that if you think you are just you look at it from one dimension, it doesn't make sense. Only if you feel you are existing in two dimensions simultaneously, then the phenomenology of life field has more of a explanation. You know, because it's like wondering if space is intelligent. It's like right now, if you ask people, most people, you tell them what can move faster than light, and they'll be like, oh, nothing can move faster than light. You know, it's like we are taught in schools that nothing can move faster than light, except the speed of the space stretching. So I don't know how many people know, but through the scientific lens, space is expanding, and it can expand quicker than light. And it kind of feels like the archaic revival of the notion of the Parabrahma, the Atman and the Parabrahma. Okay. life is a grand movement. Our meaning is based on our sphere of awareness. Robert M. Pirsig would say it's like you take a handful of sand from the beach and you think this is just you. It's as if your mind has taken a handful of experiential events and thinks it is this. To return to the unknown is to wander before the law of language in the mind. That means your ego is the sculpture after it's been, it's the clay after it's been sculpted. But before it was sculpted, whose hands move nature? And nature doesn't have hands. I think without trust and advancement into the unknown, the mind doesn't grow. And the human life doesn't feel fulfilled. Reception is stepping into the unknown. Expression is stepping into the known. There's something, my attention keeps going back to this metaphor of life being like a chess game where not only so many different kinds of moves can be done, but also that whatever move you make, you can know deep down that there is someone better, or in the future there will come someone better. And when you know that there is a better move, it's just that you can't see it, what greater hope can you have? It's as if it's not that there are geniuses in the world, it's that genius is there. Genius is the eyes. Everything is attention. That means they would say pay attention. When I was young, many teachers would say pay attention. Little did I know I need to pay attention to the attention. And that was the magnificent revelation. That was how profound yoga was for me, meditation was for me. Because I could say when I comprehended the idea of meditation, it wasn't just like it wasn't like building a Lego set. It's like it wasn't like an IKEA catalog. No, sorry, not catalog, like an IKEA desk manual. Okay, put your leg here, say this, do that, wish for the best, see if it happens. It's like, that's not strategy. You go into the battlefield like that, you're easily taken out. What do I mean by this battlefield? I don't mean a physical battlefield. I mean an ideological landscape where various sovereign entities are extracting their own meaning. That means, isn't it fascinating that there's so many different types of people and not everyone is beautiful to everyone? And not everyone is ugly to everyone. And that there's so many ways nature is moving that is the true honor of civilization. That is really what freedom of speech means. Because if freedom of speech means you need to have a freedom, you have a freedom to say anything. But check this out. This freedom of speech even though it's implying that before you can say anything, you need to be able to see. So that means if you have freedom of speech but you can't see anything, then there's nothing to say. So technically you don't have freedom of speech. But so it's the sight that is crucial. But now the issue is, when we look at especially, let's say, a few political science, from a political lens, what we see is pretty much system and members of the system and the members of the system, and a clash between the two. Now, what we haven't seen is an efficient unification of the two. And that echoes in your inner realms, where the same way, just like how you're a member of you are a member of a species, and you're a human being, yet you are like no other human being. We are individual, yet none of us are individuals. It is highly probable that consciousness is a field, and the field doesn't have a body. It is the space is its body. So I would say space is the body of God. For the mind of man who feels there is only matter. Because people say, even from a religious context, they say the Creator created everything. Does that mean the Creator also created nothing? Does that mean nothing can be created? And if nothing can be created, what was there before nothing? You see, that's the thing. When human beings really get honest with life, the linguistic simulation trembles, shakes. The chains of that had held back the wisdom of eons break. And an efficient civilization is left to what you updated. That means back in the day, in a hunter-gatherer society, it was based on the members of the tribe. If they gave a shit, they went and explored and they brought something back to the tribe. If they didn't, they would stay. That means stay in the past or walk into the future, or endlessly observe through the present. Really, design is a silent language. And so the inner realms is, the best way I can say, it's like there's a silent language of design, where the rhythm of how the image appears suggests the reality. What does that mean? That means imagine a surfer on a wave, then you suddenly catch the wave. When you're in the middle catching that wave, it is like no other moment you've experienced before on the wave. That means a new rhythm is a new self. It's an internal archetypal transformation. It's pretty much Carl Jung has this quote. He says, unless you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Carl Jung, this very notable psychologist and writer, has said. Carl Jung, one thing, I don't know if he mentioned, I haven't, looked into all of his works, but one thing he probably has said, maybe it's in the Red Book, I don't know. But it's this idea that as you make the unconscious conscious, the conscious is no longer the same conscious. That means you can't go through an experience in this life and think you're still the same person. That means literally when I give this talk, at the end of it, I'm not the same speaker as I was before. Simply because new dimensions of experience, regardless of how you measure or analyze it. It's like whether it's a centimeter or 10 millimeters, it's the same. It's like that's the thing. Language is language. Our psychology is like how when the light goes through the prism, it breaks into the color spectrum. So language is like the color spectrum. It's multidimensional, it's dualistic. We are characters and stories behind our eyes. And in front of our eyes, we're trying to get to where we want. This character is trying to seek either immortality in the story or whatnot. Seek the clarity of your ever-present, compassionate mind. There is something about compassion that, from a simpler angle in life, is endless authorization. That means your attitude is subconsciously suggesting what world you're in your inner realms. Like when you see somebody has a fear of heights, somebody doesn't in the same situation, that means the inner realms have a different analysis on the moment. So the inner realms are there. And this idea of the inner realms and the outer realms, guys, you know how much insight it brings? Do you know? It makes all those parents who don't understand their children, what happens to their children in the future, because now we know that everybody's inner life can be totally different than their outer life. And that outer life can become a play if the inner life doesn't experience expressing itself in the outer life. So I'll tell you, some people might, like there's this idea, of course I got acquainted, like introduced to it in a New Age context, but it's like the person was like, or let me say, it's not that, it's also in shamanic ideology that the smoke was a ally against negative spirits or something. There was this idea. Let me see how I can say it. Here's the idea. Let me say it like this. A person can let their mind move, or they can move their mind. If you move your mind, you better have certainty before the action and contentment. If you let nature move your mind, you will know more than yourself before beginning. So the intuition is active, I would say. There's this, here guys, I found it. There's this passage from the Vajra Sutra where it says all conditioned dharmas are like dreams, illusions, bubbles, shadows, like dewdrops and the lightning flash. Contemplate them thus. That means selfhood is temporary and dynamic. The image, like the image of the self, the idea of the self. That means the idea of a simulation could be a simulation, therefore rendering just pure reality. Wow, guys, I just saw it. It says in the sixth Patriarch Sutra says, when asked about emptiness, answer with existence. So what is emptiness? Emptiness is existence. What is existence? Existence is empty. Yeah, existence is pretty empty. You know, if emptiness was here first. from the Sixth Patriarch Sutra, it says, although sudden and gradual are different, upon contemplation they are one. Therefore, this view of things taking time to build and things instantly having a value are the same. In this view, upon completion they are one. Why make divisions of north and south? Sagely and common are parts of the one. The basic nature is absolutely the same. Do not discuss east and west. Yeah, that means don't focus too long on the duality. Check this out. It says, Great Master Yang Chia's Song of Certification to the Way says, there are no people and no Buddhas. The realms, like grains of sand in 1,000 worlds, are like a bubble on the ocean. I mean, this isn't part of the quote, but here the person's written, if you understand the Buddha Dharma, there's nothing to which you can become attached. Yeah, because attachment is a concept. Because on some level it's just movement. It's just the movement of design. And after 4 billion years of evolution, there is sophistication to perceive. That means the coolest thing about whatever journey we as a creature went through to get here is that now we are in the driver's seat of our own mind. Do you know many creatures from many different species, they're in the driver's seat of their intelligence. Their mind is their ecosystem. Because we stepped out of the concrete jungle, instead of the ecosystem being our mind defined the ecosystem, created a subjective ecosystem upon the objective ecosystem, and now everybody has values. Guys, the whole point of this episode has been me trying to say that regardless of whatever way we interpret reality, it is a movement and it is moving in unknown ways while we're experiencing a known way of it happening. And when we can appreciate the unknown, we can appreciate the advancement and the change and shift of any known. You see, in this life, everything changes. You might dislike someone one day, suddenly, in like weeks from then, you don't even remember who they are, you know? And it becomes a situation where life, its chapters continue to be written, regardless of however way the character in the story has dwelt. And it's just that you have a certain phase of life and ability to communicate and actually share your realm. So I feel we have to become so beyond the isms of the human mind in regards to ignorance that it's like, I don't see, you know what I see? If you were to close your eyes and listen to the silence of every human being, do you know what you would hear? You would hear just breathing. That's what we are. A moment where breath has access to life. If you look at things simply, you don't have a complex bias towards things. For me, it's strange. It became, in my youth, I didn't understand, but then I realized it's just piloting. That means when you look at something complex, the mind, where else can it bounce to after seeing the complex? It bounces to the simple. Now, after your mind has seen the simple, what else can it do? Now, because it's reverse engineered from the complex to the simple. If it builds again from the simple, it will automatically be a new complexity. Evolution is not a straight line, it's a spiral. So anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in. I hope this episode was helpful. I'm gonna, for 5 minutes, put Q&A if anyone interested. And Okay, guys. Actually, before I end off, there's this quote from the Diamond Sutra, which I really feel I need to share, and it may be a bit out of context, and people might not have a clue, like what was said before. But I'm just going to read it for you. Shruti says, so this is how it is. It's two people speaking. So the person is saying, Shruti, what do you think? He's talking to someone. That person's name is Suti, Subhuti, and says, Suti, what do you think? Has the Tathagata attained the supreme enlightenment? Has he something about which he would preach? Then here it says, Suti said, world-honored one, as I understand the teaching of the Buddha, there is no fixed doctrine about which the Tathagata would preach. Why? Because the doctrine he preaches is not to be adhered to, nor is it to be preached about. It is neither a dharma nor a no dharma. And then, I think he's talking to a king here, and then the other person says, how is it so? Oh no, sorry, the guy continues, he says, how is it so? Because all wise men belong to the category known as non-doing, asamskara, and yet they are distinct from one another. So guys, this is just a big dollar. I want to read this too. The guy's saying again, Shruti, what do you think? If a man should fill the 3,000 chilocosms with the 7 precious treasures and give them all away for charity, would not the merit he thus obtains be great? Suti said, very great indeed, world-honored one. Why? Because their merit is characterized with the quality of not being a merit. Therefore the Tathagata speaks of the merit as being great. If again there is a man who, holding even the 4 lines in this sutra, preaches about it to others, his merit will be superior to the one just mentioned. Okay, because Shruti, all the Buddhas and their supreme enlightenment issue from this sutra. Shruti, what is known as the teaching of the Buddha, is not the teaching of the Buddha. Yeah, guys, you know what it is? It's this constant pancake flipperoo thing going on in mysticism until they realize both sides of the pancake are okay. When you eat the pancake, it's like, it doesn't matter which side you're looking at. Yeah. Anyways, guys, I'm just gonna end the talk here. I don't think there's any questions. Alright, guys, it's been an all-nighter for me, so I'm gonna head out. Thanks for tuning in. Blessings. And a round of applause for Shruti. That was a passage from the Diamond Sutra. I'm gonna post the link here so people know what I was reading. Okay.